You know, it's almost impossible to fire federal employees, or at least traditionally it has been. And it may sound like not a big deal, but it's a gigantic deal. The people you elect, they'll get into office, and the federal workforce can oftentimes completely defy them. And you can't fire these daggone people. They're like leeches. Is that about to change? I don't know. Supreme Court just decided something. We better ask Bill Jacobson about that. Joining me now, founder of Legal Insurrection, Cornell University law professor, Bill Jacobson. Okay, Bill, what is this decision? What does it mean?
So the Supreme Court granted a stay, which means put a hold on an injunction from federal district court in California, which prevented the federal government from moving forward under a Trump executive order, which called on, I think it was 19 different departments to develop plans for large scale layoffs. So the district court stopped them from even planning to do anything, which went up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which refused to grant a stay pending appeal. They then took it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court 8-1 with Ketanji Brown Jackson dissenting in a fairly fiery dissenting, and granted a stay. And there's many reasons why they granted the stay, but what we can discern from the short opinion, as well as the opinion of Justice Sotomayor, who agreed with them, is what is the court below doing? All the executive order says is start planning. The executive order didn't lay anybody off. So a federal district court judge stopped them from even planning and therefore enjoined plans which didn't even yet exist. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to allow that to happen. This lower court order is stayed. They can move forward with the planning.
Okay, so there aren't going to be mass layoffs as of right now. All this said is you can start planning for mass layoffs, just to make sure I have that correct.
That's right. And
Okay.
Ketanji
All right.
Brown
Now,
Jackson dissented from that.
go ahead.
She dissented from it.
Okay.
Total,
You
expressing
said it was
outrage
you said it was a fiery dissent. Why?
because she used a lot of the sort of language she's used before, very accusatory towards her colleagues, very accusatory towards the court, and ignoring what she called the reality on the ground. I mean, she literally used a term. If I didn't quote it precisely, it was very close to that. The district court judge knows better what's happening on the ground, which is, of course, just an absurd assertion. And she's done that before. And the court is once again ignoring the rights of different citizens, etc. And so it was just very accusatory towards the majority, towards the court. And one thing that's interesting is that it was also, in a sense, accusatory against the two other liberals, because both Kagan and Sotomayor voted with the majority. And Kagan wrote a separate decision, which clearly was directed towards Justice Jackson and said, look, basically, you don't seem to understand. We don't even have a plan to rule on. All the executive order did is say they could create a plan. Once we have that plan, then we can rule on whether it's lawful or not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So she felt the need. A lot of people use the expression, explain this to me like I'm a fifth grader. Okay. That's what Justice Sotomayor did for Justice Jackson. She explained it to her like she was a fifth grader in very simple terms that apparently Justice Jackson, to the end, was unable to grasp because she continued with her 10-page dissent, which really was not grounded in anything. And this is what we're seeing a lot from her. She gets very accusatory towards people who disagree with her. She gets very nasty towards them in her dissents. And we saw a couple of weeks ago, I think I discussed it on your show, how Amy Coney Barrett lashed out at her, basically said this was a different case. This was the so-called birthright citizenship case, that all the things Justice Jackson is saying in her dissent are contrary to 200 years of constitutional law. And now Sotomayor had to say something similar, a little kinder, but it basically was, okay, Justice Jackson, I'm going to explain this to you like you're a fifth grader. Here's why we need to grant the stay. And so that's what's really astounding, is that None of the other justices, 8, including 2 liberal justices, really don't seem to have a lot of respect for Justice Jackson.
Okay, Bill, obviously you are much more wired into the law school realm than I am. It's not that I think lawyers or judges are automatically brilliant, but my sister went through law school, had to pass the bar in several different states. The amount of research and writing and things, it was astounding the amount of information she had to hoover up in order to move forward with that career. How does someone rise to a Supreme Court justice who apparently is so dumb, even fellow liberals are marveling at what she doesn't know?
Yeah, that is astounding. She is a social justice warrior. It's coming through in her writings very clearly. Whenever I people say, "Well, is critical race theory ever going to infect the court system?" I said, if you want to read how critical race theory is infecting the system now, read Justice Jackson's dissent in the affirmative action case. It was total political verbiage, total anything you might hear in a social justice course in college. And so I think it's a combination of her having the right politics for Democrats to get ahead, and President Biden at the time said why he was picking her. He picked her because he wanted a Black woman on the court. He wanted that first. There's no question she would not have been selected but for that racial gerrymandering by President Biden. So that's how she got ahead. She got ahead through favoritism. She got ahead through being a social justice warrior. She's not a stupid person. I didn't mean to suggest that, but she obviously lets her politics influence her legal analysis. Remember, in the birthright citizenship case, she criticized the court for getting hung up on all this, quote, legalese, close quote. Well, wait a second. That's your job as a judge. You're supposed to get hung up on legalese, okay? So I think the main problem with her is that she's not the brightest bulb in the theater, but she's not a stupid person. But she got ahead through being a social justice warrior.
Golly. All right, let's shift gears. I do want to ask this before I get to Thomas and Alito and retirement things. Why was there an injunction at all? I thought we got rid of that with the last Supreme Court decision.
Well, this was an injunction against a particular executive order. So I'm not sure it really would have fallen under the so-called universal injunction sort of problem that the Supreme Court dealt with. It really just enjoined the government from implementing a particular executive order. Whether it would have had a different outcome post, Supreme Court decision, I don't know, but I don't think it would have made a difference here.
All right, shifting gears here. I love Alito. I love Thomas, as anybody with a brain does. But Father Time is undefeated. Are there whispers about potential retirements? I'm not even saying I'm trying to shove them out the door because I love those men, but we don't want a Democrat to replace them, and that's always a possibility. What's the rumor mill say?
Yeah, I think there were, I'm not sure if there were rumors or thoughts. People are expecting that one or both of them will retire on a timing that would allow Trump to name a replacement. That may not happen. And the most famous case of it not happening is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who hung on just a little bit too long, and Trump got to name her replacement. And so that's hanging over everybody. We don't want Alito or Thomas to go Ginsburg here. But they're both seemingly in good shape. They're certainly in good mental shape, as was Ginsburg. There would be a real loss to the court to lose either one of them, but they have to be conscious that they don't want some future Democrat president to name their replacement. They do not want the equivalent of a Justice Jackson to replace them, some social justice warrior. And those are the types of judges Biden has appointed to the lower courts. So it's the expectation that they will retire more so than the rumor that they're making plans to retire.
Bill, as always, I appreciate you, sir. Come back.
I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.